Agents of Mock reporting in to share with you something special that I've been involved in for the past year. For 12 months, myself and two friends, Jesse Moeller of Jesse's Brick Galaxy and Mal Brown from the show Lego Masters, as well as all the various guests joining, have been coming together every month live on Mel's YouTube channel, Iceberg Bricks, to build something with Lego bricks within 90 minutes based on a theme that we could come up with or that people in the live stream chat provide. I'm going to talk a little bit about each build that I did for each month and give you a glimpse into the mind of an adult Lego fan under the pressure of building under the clock. I would love to hear your thoughts on what your favorite build and or least favorite build is out of all of them. Okay, let's get started and see what I came up with. The first month was in May 2020, and at first we were just coming together to build something Star Wars themed for Revenge of the Sixth, and ended up continuing the challenge every month thereafter. I ended up building one of my favorite scenes ever in Star Wars, which is the Darth Vader corridor scene at the end of Rogue One. Overall, I think it represented the scene pretty well. However, I wish I would have had more time to build up and tile the floor to make it look more polished. For June, to ease our anxiety during the pandemic, we did a COVID-19 theme. We just had fun with this one and came up with something that came under our heads about the pandemic. I thought about all the toilet paper shortage, so I came up with this story about a person cosplaying as a pirate, pillaging the last roll of toilet paper and fashioning it into a raft to sail into the sunset away from the pandemic. I used snot technique to form the roll of toilet paper with the plates, and was even able to make a rudder to make it look like the roll was starting to unravel. July was a theme that the people in the chat provided, which ended up being space castles. I ended up with this citadel built on an asteroid floating in space with a Blacktron color scheme. I ended up equipping it with a landing pad that has a curved staircase descending down into the rest of the structure. I was also able to use some older rocket elements to add to the space look, and I also did some rough snot work for the asteroid using old dark gray and dark bluish gray parts. This model is definitely one of my favorites out of the bunch, and I thought it came out very interesting to look at and a very complete looking model. Next up, we had a retro gaming theme for the month of August. I ended up building a small replica of the Outrun arcade system, if you guys remember that back in the day. It ended up being the smallest build I did by far, but I think the shaping came out rather well, and you could easily recognize it if you remembered what it looked like back in the day. For September, we paid a small tribute to Chadwick Boseman, who had just recently passed, by doing a Black Panther theme. I ended up trying to emulate one of the movie posters for the movie with Black Panther on the top of the cave entrance to the vibranium mine, with the statue of the panther above the opening. I thought the shaping of the head was done well enough within the time frame. However, I wish I had more time to add a little bit more structure for the cave portion and build up the rest of the terrain a little bit better, as that was very much rushed. For October, we did a Halloween theme, of course. I had a lot more ideas and aspirations for this build that I wanted to add, but for some reason I just did not have enough focus that day and could not finish it in time. This is definitely one of my least favorite builds, but I was able to get a couple of interesting details, such as the blood spatter on the tile behind the bathtub, as well as incorporating Mel's sig fig as the antagonist in the scene. The month of November was Thanksgiving themed, and it was the only month I could not make it live to the build with a group, but I was able to build something on my own. To understand this build, you have to hear the terrible Thanksgiving dad joke, what do you get when you put a turkey and a drinking glass together? A goblet. Yep, as bad as that was, I rolled with the idea and just made that. This build is probably the weirdest thing I have built since I was a kid and could be the stuff of nightmares. However, I think the idea was executed rather well. December was a Christmas theme, and I really wanted to build something that you may not think was Christmas themed at first glance. That ended up being the Ghost of Christmas Future from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The build is almost entirely snot and using a lot of black parts to create his cloak. I used small white claws to create his eyes and a larger claw for his bony finger to to show him pointing at Ebenezer Scrooge's grave. After finding out someone used to be a hip-hop DJ back in the day, we decided to make this month's theme just that. I ended up with this old-school looking ghetto blaster, supplied with an equalizer, dual tape decks, and a folding handle. I probably could have given the model more structure depth-wise, but the main focus here was really to nail the look of the front of it. In the end, I was really happy with the result on this one. Next month's theme was selected by the chat, which ended up being Classic Space. The extra challenge was incorporating old light gray elements into the build, so I went with very classic old light gray, blue, and trans yellow. Apart from the oddly shaped windscreen for the cockpit, I think this build came out pretty cool and aerodynamic. I was even able to incorporate a couple play features that were prominent in the Classic Space sets back in the day, including foldable wings and a removable escape pod at the front that can disconnect from the main body of the ship. This was another favorite build of mine out of the bunch, as I have not had a lot of time building custom spaceships, so it was really fun to get pulled out of my comfort zone and build one for a change. For March, we did a St. Patrick's Day theme, and I ended up building this near 1-to-1 scale of a Shamrock guitar. This one was by far the largest model out of the 12 that I did. I was actually having a hard time getting the entire thing in the shot at my small table that I have for these videos. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite get the neck secured to the body of it in the time frame, along with a couple other details, but it ended up being a pretty rockin' model. For the final theme, we decided to build whatever we wanted. For whatever reason, I had a hard time deciding what to do, and ended up thinking about the Lego City and how that sparked my interest for building again as an adult. So I went with micro scale again and began to build this smaller version of my Marvel City. The build ended up being half-baked, unfinished, and just not that interesting to look at in my opinion, but it got the message across, and sometimes that is just how it goes sometimes in these challenges. That completes all of the builds that I did for this past year. This was such an awesome experience and was really happy to share with this journey with you all. If you haven't yet, go check out Mel and Jesse on YouTube. They are great people and awesome builders. I'll leave a link in the description below to check them out. And you can also go to Mel's YouTube channel, Iceberg Bricks, if you want to go back and watch any of these live builds that we did together. You know, they can be really interesting to watch and see us scurry about and try to get all of this stuff done in 90 minutes. So again, thank you guys for watching and supporting the channel, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video too. We'll see you next time. See ya.